Hey, what's up guys? Today in this video, let's look at how we can start and stop our EC2 instances on AWS at a fixed interval. So what is the requirement? The requirement is that let's say you have a staging server or a test server which you want to use during a fixed time. For example, during my office hours, I would want my staging instance to be running. But then once the office hour ends, right? Let's say around 6:37, or maybe let's keep a little bit of buffer and say at 9 o'clock IST, right? We will shut down the instance because then after that, for quite some time, it is not required. So we will be saving money when the EC2 instance is stopped. So what is the best idea to do that? Now, I don't really want to every day go and stop the instance. It should be done automatically. And so in this video, I will show you a script, or rather a Lambda function, which will help us do this particular thing. Now I will send you the link of this gist in the video description so that you can refer to this code. This is all that you need. And I am going to show you how exactly that needs to be done. To start with, obviously the first thing which we need is a server, an EC2 instance, so that we can spin it up. So let's go to the EC2 dashboard. In here, inside instances, I'll launch a new instance. I'll use the Amazon Linux 2 AMI. I'll select it. Let's use the most cheapest one right now. It has only half a gig of memory, but that's fine. We are not really installing anything on that. We are just testing whether the instance can be started and stopped automatically. So I'll not change any configuration over here. Just you need to understand that I'm creating one instance. Okay, let's add some storage. 8 GB by default is fine. Right now I'm not going to give any specific tag. Let's use the default security group. Okay, review and launch. Now let's create a new key pair. This is required so that we can SSH to our server. Ideally, we don't need it. I'm not going to SSH to the server, but still, for demo, I'll create a key pair. Let me save the key pair to my desktop. Once done, I'll launch the instance. Do remember, this is the only time which you will be able to download the key pair. Once you download it and move away from the screen, after that, you will not be able to get the key pair. So be careful and keep it safe. All right, so our instance is launching. Let it do its own thing. And in the meantime, why don't we create our Lambda functions? Okay, so what are the steps? First of all, we will create two Lambda functions. One Lambda function will be used to start an instance, and the second one will be used to stop the instance. Okay, but then for these Lambda functions to start or stop instances, it needs certain kinds of permissions. Okay, and to create those permissions, we will create a policy and attach it to a role so that we can give that role to a Lambda function. Okay, I'm just giving you the idea. Let's do it so that you understand in great details. I'll go to IAM. This is where all the identity, their permissions, and their policies are managed on AWS. Okay, I'll create a policy at first. Now let me see if I already have that policy. DevOps. Right. So I have the policy, but it doesn't really matter. I think I can even delete it. Right. And I will create it again for you so that you understand the entire process. So create. Okay. And I will advise you to just copy paste this particular policy. This should be enough for us to work with. But let's first understand what is happening, because as I say, you can copy paste things, but do understand what is happening. Okay, so this visual editor is there because actually I created it using this visual editor tool. You can see that if you are not very familiar or comfortable with JSON, then you can use this GUI to do that. But yeah, this is also fine. So the first statement which we are saying is that we will allow, okay, the following actions: EC2 start, EC2 stop on any instance. Okay, the resources is star, so which means we can do it on any resource on AWS. If we want, we can give them permissions on very specific resources, but for now, let's keep it to star. And because the Lambda function will be writing logs to a CloudWatch, right, we need to give it some permissions for writing to the log files as well. So allow these three permissions: create log stream, create log group, and put log events. These are the three permissions on any AWS log file. Okay, it's a little I would say too much permissions, but that's fine. You can go here and select the very specific resources if you want to. In here you can do that, but for now I am just sticking to the all. Okay, so I'll go to next tags. I will add something. Let's just say name is DevOps. Okay, review it. I'll name it as, this is the policy, so DevOps policy. And then let's just create that policy. Right. Now there are roles. What you can do is you create this role. Again, as you can see, I was trying things. So I already have that Lambda DevOps role. And in that, I can attach the policy which I just created, because you can give a role to a Lambda function, but not a policy. Or maybe I don't know how to do that. But yes, definitely this works, because then you can attach more policies if you want to in a role. All right. So what we have done so far, we created an IAM policy. We created a role. We attached that policy to our role. Okay. Now let's go to Lambda and create our first Lambda function. So I'll show you a graph so you will understand. See, while I was trying a few things, right, this graph shows that some of the Lambda functions were created. I had some errors as well. So this gives you a lot of information about your Lambda functions. It is 3 hours back, but last 1 hour, I think I don't have anything, right? Okay. So now let's just create a function, a new Lambda function. I will use the author from scratch. I'll name the first Lambda function as EC2 Start. EC2 Start. Okay. This is the name of the Lambda function. And we are going to use Python 3.8. Change default execution role. This is where we will select the role that we just created. If you see, we have three options. One is that it will create a new role with the basic permissions which a Lambda function will require, which actually is this. Okay, this will get generated in the new role if we tell Lambda function to create its own role. But that is not exactly what we want. We want a little more than the policies which are attached, which is just the logging. We want the EC2 permissions, right? So we have to create a role. As you can see here, we only have the ability to select a role in here. So I will do that. Now in the drop down, I get the recent role that I have created. Fine. I think this is all there is on this screen. And now if I hit create function, I'm in this interface where I can start writing my code. I'll just clean it up and let's copy the first piece of code. Okay. Let me open up the EC2 in a new tab as well. We should have our instance already running. But to test our application or the function which we are just creating, the Lambda function, I'll need to stop it. So let me stop this instance. And obviously one more thing is I need this instance ID. So I'll just copy this instance ID, paste it here. And now let's understand what's happening over here. So with Python, we get the Boto3 library. It allows us to do certain kinds of interactions with the EC2 resources. Now I have two variables. One is region, the region where we have our EC2 instance. You can see US East 1, North Virginia, and instances is an array where I can pass the instance IDs, and it will perform the specific action on all the instances which are there in this array. Now we create an EC2, a new instance of Boto3 client, which we are calling as EC2. In that client, we are mentioning the first parameter as an instance of EC2, and we are specifying the region over here. That's the API, how you need to do that. Okay. And then this is the Lambda handler. This is the function which will get executed when this Lambda function is triggered. In here, we have event and context, but believe me, right now we don't need them. They are available. Okay. But we are going to use something else. We are printing starting instances and then EC2.start instances. This is the function available with the Boto client. And in there, we pass the instance IDs, which is what we just attached. Now, this means with this piece of code, I should be able to actually start an EC2 instance, right? Yes, that's why what I did was I stopped this EC2 instance. So let's see if it is stopped already. Yes, it is. And so now it's time to try out our code. Let's see. Let's try to test it. Event name, test default. You can name it anything. Doesn't really matter. I did a create, and now if I test, okay, it is triggering the old one. I have to deploy this code. The changes are now deployed, and now if I run, response is null, but it printed starting instances. So now if I come over here and if I refresh, you can see it says pending, which means our code did trigger the start of this EC2 instance. Okay, and why did we use this logging functionality? Let's go to CloudWatch. In the policy, we did give certain permissions for logs, right? So what happens is, if we go to logs, actually inside log groups, we have logs for our EC2 start Lambda function. If we go over here, you will see we executed this function twice, and you will get the details of that in here. Okay, start. It should have also shown the started log. I'm not sure why it is not doing. Okay, this is the first one, I think. 12.5. Let's see this one. Right. It said starting instances. So you can find the logs also when you are printing anything inside the Lambda function. Now, obviously, our logs are working, which we can see in our CloudWatch log group. I can see my instance is running again. Now it's time to create a new Lambda function, which will stop the EC2 instance. So let's create one more. EC2 stop. Again, we will use Python as our preferred language. Use the existing role that we have, and we create the function. Go to the gist. Everything is ready for us. The only difference between these two is obviously the print, and in here in the start Python file, we are calling the start instances function, and in the stop Python file, we are calling the stop instances function. So let's come over here, Lambda function, paste it here. We need the instance ID. I'll copy it again. Come over here and I'll create a test default test. Okay. The values are something, if you really want to pass any parameters, then you can add them as JSON object, but we really don't need any value, right? So deploy. I think now if I run test, execution was done, stopping instances. Let's first see if we have logs for EC2 stop. Yes, we do. That's fine. So the logging is working, and let's see what is the status of our instance. So previously it was pending. Now let me refresh. It still says pending. That's interesting. I think it is stopping. Oh yes, it's stopped now. So our instance is stopped, which means our two Lambda functions are doing their job. which is one is starting an EC2 instance, one is stopping an EC2 instance. But then I'm hitting Lambda functions manually. This is as good as going into the EC2 console and stopping the server. Then why so much fuss? Let's see how we can actually automate it. So in here comes the CloudWatch rules. CloudWatch rules can trigger multiple kinds of things based on certain rules or conditions. And what we are going to use CloudWatch rules for is to set up a cron which on a specific time will trigger a specific Lambda function. Before we do that, let's see UTC now, because it is going to work on UTC time. Okay, so 40, let's try for 41. Let's quickly copy this, come over here, create new rule. We will use a schedule, cron expression, Monday to Friday. What was the time? 6:41, right? So 41, 6, you will see the details. We will come over it, or maybe let's do 42. I'm pressed for time maybe. Okay, EC2 start, configure details, start, stage, server, create rule. Okay, what was the time we set? Action, edit. How much seconds do we have? 50, right? So I can do that. 41, configure details, update rule, and let's sit back and see. Okay, 41 happened. Now it's time to see if the rule was triggered. Come over here. Okay, it still says stopped. Maybe I was late. I don't know. Let's go to the logs and see whether it was triggered or not. EC2 start. So let's try to change the rule again. Staging server. Monday to Friday, 6:42, right? That is fine. Okay, so let me try again. I have basically cleared all the logs and I have tried to stop the instance once more so that things are in a inert state kind of thing, and then configure details, update rule. So when is it going to trigger next? Let's see. Next 10 triggers, it is going to happen at 6:48, 29th, 6:48 GMT, which means in some time. So let's hope this time it is getting triggered. I have cleared the logs as well. So log groups, EC2 start. I think it just happened. Let me see. Okay, that's fine. That's interesting. So basically, if I see, the log group shows one entry, which is correct. Okay. And because we were at 48, it was triggered, and you can see this is now running. Right? So the EC2 instance started because our rule, which is staging server start, triggered at 48. So now similarly, what I can do is, let me copy this. Action, copy, and we will create a new rule again. Rules, create new rule. So schedule cron expression is, let's just say 50. Okay, add target, EC2 stop, maybe 51. Okay, configure details, stop staging server, and let's create the rule. And now we'll have to wait and watch. In the meantime, let me clear the logs for stop EC2 Lambda function as well. So I'll go over here, delete, and then the only thing which we can do is wait for a minute. Now let's just see if we were able to automatically stop the instance. So come over here, first see if the logs were triggered. Okay, it doesn't show me, but that's interesting. So now the Lambda function, the second one didn't trigger as well. Okay, it's taking a bit of time. It didn't exactly run at the the moment it was 6:51, but as you can see, it's now stopping. Okay, and I think now we will see the log over here. Yes, so it's gave the log, and it is now the instance is now stopped. So basically that really means that using the rule, we were able to trigger the start and stop of the instances at fixed interval of time. Right now, as you can see, this is the cron syntax. I'm saying that from Monday to Saturday at around 3:56 UTC, I want my instance to start. So I am in India. I am 5.5 hours ahead of UTC. So based on that calculation, I can plan when my server should start, and based on that, the server will automatically start at that fixed interval of time, or rather at that fixed time, and it will stop at one fixed time that I have set inside my cloud rule. So yes, that's about it. What we have done, let's quickly recap. This gist is very important thing. We first created a policy. We created a policy which allows the Lambda function to write logs, and it allows to write, or rather, start stop EC2 instances. Okay. Then we created a role, and we attached the policy we just created to that particular role. So if you go to IAM, in here we created the policy, which was our DevOps policy, right? And then we attached it to the DevOps role, right? Lambda DevOps. So now with this role available, we created two Lambda functions. We can see over here, we have two Lambda functions. One is EC2 Start and one is EC2 Stop. Both of them are Python 3.8 version. And that Lambda function has that role, which means the Lambda function has the ability to write logs, and it has the ability to start, stop instances. And then the code for both these Lambda functions are over here. They are pretty straightforward. They are very similar. You just need to update the instance ID, and that's about it. Okay. And then we were able to test. We were able to start, stop the Lambda function by, using this test function over here. And obviously that is not the right way to maintain. So what we did, we went to CloudWatch. Okay. Not here. And in CloudWatch, we created an event which will fire the Lambda function at a specific time. And we could see that when those events were fired, we were able to start the EC2 instance at a particular time and stop an EC2 instance at a particular time, right? And that's how the entire sequence works. So yes, thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, do click on the thumbs up icon and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.